then it morphed into having the candidate form, so you as the citizens to be able to make an informed decision about who's going to be the next governor of Minnesota. We originally had Congressman Berg coming, and he was more than looking forward to being here, but not make a connecting flight from a fundraiser that he was doing out on the West Coast. Congressman Berg is doing so much to flip the House and get that Congress back in the hands of adults in the room, just like we should be in the Minnesota House. All declared candidates of the GOP were invited and are here today. I will introduce to you shortly Mitch Berg, who's going to be the MC, but I just want to remind everyone that the caucuses are coming up on February 1st. They'll be in the normal spots, either Upper Big Lake or in District 30. If you're not in District 30, we can find out where you're at if you need that information. Keep in mind that we have our districting coming, and the final maps will come out on November 15th-ish, and shortly thereafter it's going to be a scramble to get the nominating done at the conventions so we can move people on to the state. We need to pick up seats in the Senate, and close reminder, as I said, we need to flip the House in Minnesota. We need to get some adults in the room. We have seen the failed leadership of the DFL, and we have seen how a small majority of members from a small percentage of the state are controlling the DFL. We need adults in the room to bring back normalcy. Chad Westberg, our treasurer, is at the back of the room. If you have not made your 2021 political campaign donation, and you'd like to use that to District 30, you'd be more than happy to do that, and we'll get you a PCR. Or if you are so moved by what you hear today from your candidates, they will be more than willing to take your donation. On your agenda that everyone has the websites for all of the candidates. If you want to look things up on them or do research or make a donation, you can do that. We're going to do this as a fast-paced forum. All the candidates have been given the questions beforehand in the interest of moving through them as fast as we can and getting a chance at the end for you to speak with the candidates and a personal conversation with them. And with that, I will be turning the mic over to Mitch Berg. Mitch Berg is from St. Paul. He's been hosting a radio show on AM 1280 since 2004, usually Saturdays from 1 to 3. He changed his time of the day so he could be with us. And during his normal life, he heard speaks for his full-time job. They assume that's a computer. Everyone give me a warm round of applause for
Got a little confession to make. In 36 years I've lived in Minnesota. This is the first time I've been in Elk River, so give yourselves a hand. And by the way, when he said something, Representative Bobby said show up to caucuses, I live in St. Paul, as he said, and if you want everything that's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul to come out here as well, just don't show up at caucuses. Leave it to the other guys, okay? So, we'll tee this up here. Everyone is going to get a 2-minute opening statement. We're going to ask the candidates to keep to 1 minute on their responses. They've had chances to rehearse their answers, don't worry. And then 2-minute closing statements. We want to get through those to give everyone a chance to talk with them face-to-face on their own afterwards before they throw us all out at 11:30, so I'm going to hustle through this. With that in mind, I'm going to ask you to keep your applause down or non-existent to the actual answers to the questions. People who violate too much will need to take a drive to International Falls in a Corolla with Ryan Winkler. So hopefully we've expressed the seriousness. So what I will do is just round robin, starting on the far side of the table here, through the questions and do the opening statement. So with no further ado, 2-minute opening statements. We'll start with Dr. Shah. Good morning.
I've had enough. Have any of you had enough?
Yes.
I've had enough of crime in our streets, of our kids being killed, of our kids being pulled out of school, forced forced to eat lunch outside in November, forced to be indoctrinated to look at the color of somebody's skin, not the quality of their character. I've had enough of a tax and spend state that takes too much out of our pockets and drives away our business builders and gives us far too little in return. I've had enough of the career politicians in St. Paul who want to go there and then stay there because it means sacrificing their political careers if they take an unpopular vote. I've had enough of Tim Walz. My name is Neil Shaw. I'm a physician, a father, a husband, and a dermatologist. I came to Minnesota in 2003 to go to medical school. I trained down at Mayo and I started my business 10 years ago. My wife and I have 3 young kids and we live in North Oaks. And when I talked to her about wanting to stay in Minnesota, the state she was born and raised in, where all of her family is, she had enough as well. And I think you have too. I'm running to save the state that I love from the career politicians, Tim Walz, and the radical left. We know there's a lot of work to do, and I'm prepared to do that work. And if we send an outsider to St. Paul, I think we can reverse the trend that we've seen over the last 25 statewide races. My name is Neil Shaw. I've had enough, and I'm running for governor of the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Up next, Mayor Mike Murphy.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mitch, for moderating another one of these forums for us today. And thank you to everyone being here. My name is Mike Murphy. I'm the mayor of the city of Lexington, but before that, I used to be in law enforcement. I left that field due to a back injury, and I went into small business. Been doing small business for the last 16 years in the printing and shipping industry, UPS stores between Minnesota and Wisconsin. In 2016, I also had enough of city politics and running for council. One as a writing candidate, took over as mayor in 2019, and I've been doing that ever since. And 2020 was a big year for us. And you're going to hear 2022 is the biggest election in our history, just like 2020 is. But it's the God-honest truth. 2022 is the make it or break it year for our country, and especially for our state. Because we lose Minnesota, you're going to see socialism take this state over like you've never seen the state be taken over before. And it's been proven. I mean, we have a tyrant as our governor, Tim Walz. We have Ilhan Omar as our representative in CD5 who absolutely hates this country. And we have an Antifa leader, Attorney General Keith Ellison. And we can't allow our state to fall to tyranny. We cannot lose our freedoms. We have to stop allowing them to attack our faith and our families. They closed our schools, our churches down, our businesses down. They're masking our children. They're forcing vaccines upon us with mandates. It's stuff and cover, and they're using Corona to guide us down a different path to take over our country. And I cannot allow that. I cannot allow my daughter Eleanor, who's 20 months actually today, to grow up in an indoctrinated system. My wife has also had enough, just like Lee's wife as well. And all of you have too. And we need to have strong leaders. People that are going to fight to the system and take over and bring Minnesota down a path of prosperity. My name is Mike Murphy, and I'm running for governor.
Thank you. Up next, Mike Marty.
Hi, I'm Mike Marty. I'm a 4th generation Minnesota, a business owner of 21 years. I started my electrical contracting business out of our garage, and it's grown into the small business that provides for our family. That's what they're supposed to do. That's part of living the American dream in this state. Having a dream, chasing it, and then seeing it to fruition. I love this format because this is going to be a short, quick format. The other candidates know that I'm known for fairly short answers. That's because when you're guided by principles and not politics, you can just give a straight answer and it makes sense. My name is Mike Marty, and I'm running to be your next governor.
Up next, Drs. and Senator Scott Jensen.
Good morning. 9 months ago, my wife and I made the decision to launch. And for the last 9 months, we've traveled the state of Minnesota asking you what matters. And this is what you told us. You told us that public safety and focusing on children and secure elections matter. We're going to talk about those issues this morning. But you talked about other things too. You talked about failed leadership. You talked about the fact that in politics there's too many omnibus bills, too much secrecy, too much seniority, too much 11th hour accomplishments. 201 legislators don't participate in the process. That's what bothered you. You've told Mary and I, and by the way, Mary's the best thing that ever happened to me, but you told us that you want strong leadership. You want transparency. You want someone who will resist the groupthink that is so easy to fall into in politics. You wanted someone who would be unflinching when their medical license was being investigated, and they were being investigated by Associated Press and fact-checked by the New York Times and the Washington Post. That's what you wanted. You wanted a trailblazer. You might not have been in love with President Trump's Twitter account, but you loved the way he trailblazed and drove the discussion, the way he went after NATO and NAFTA. That's what you said to us. Mary and I took you at your word. So we're here. This isn't about doing it the same old, same old. There will be these political moments where there will be gotcha games being played, and you'll hear all of that. You'll hear snide little things to undercut a given position. But this isn't about politicians getting to decide. This is all about you. Thanks for being here. My name is Scott Jensen.
Next, Senator Paul Gazelka.
Good morning, I'm Paul Gazelka, and first of all, thank you for being here. It means a lot that people come out and listen to us. You're going to have to choose between 6 candidates. I'll make the case that as the leader of the Senate the last 5 years, the only Republican majority standing in the gap, that we did a good job considering we were surrounded by all things Democrat. But on a personal note, I want you to know a little bit about me. I have a strong Christian faith, I'm a conservative, and I'm a Republican. So if you look at where my compass points, you don't have to wonder. That's where my compass is pointing. I've had the chance and the privilege to be the leader of the Senate and held my ground against 2 Democrat governors, Dayton and Walz. Both of them wanted to raise taxes. We lowered taxes both times. They wanted to change the Second Amendment. They wanted to reduce our pro-life positions. They wanted to defund the police, if you can believe that. But every time I gathered our one vote majority together and we held the line. I think that's what you need to know. But my ambition is to remove Tim Walz from office and retire him early. That's my mission. And then it's about taking our state back. We got to take our state back. And that's winning the governorship, but it's also winning the House and Senate. We've kept the Senate now 3 out of the last 4 times. We're the only ones that are winning. Back-to-back majorities for the first time ever under my leadership. But we need the House to win too. They only lost by 600 votes. 4 seats, a total of 600 votes. If we have House, Senate, Governor, we can bring great reform to Minnesota. So don't give up. We've got an opportunity right now to win, and I'll make the case that I'm the strongest conservative leader that has governed at the highest level and has proven and shown how to win. I'm Paul Gazelka. Thank you.
And finally, Senator Michelle Benson.
Hi, I'm Michelle Benson, and I'm running to be your next governor. Why would anyone do this? Why would anyone get up on a Saturday morning and come to have people listen to you or tweet about you? Because it matters who you put in office and what their motivation is. I grew up on a farm in central Minnesota. My brothers farm our family land. My sister and her husband have a dairy farm. My nephews, one came home from Stanford, the other came home from Cornell to build their family farm. Do you know what farmers do? They're stewards of the land they've been given. They prepare it for their children. That is what we need to do in Minnesota. My husband was in the Navy, 5 years, 9 addresses. We chose Minnesota as our home. You know why? Because it was safe. It had a good education system. It was a good place to raise your family. Tim Walz has made us less safe. Tim Walz has undermined our education system. We are to be stewards of what we were given. I will be a steward of every freedom I have, every opportunity I've been given in this state as a daughter of Minnesota. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to put a candidate forward who has a vision for our future where our children are safe, where they are educated to their God-given potential, and where we use every resource. Because it is our natural environment that attracts so many people here as tourists. if it's mining that's provided jobs for generations, if it's forestry that made us leaders in paper production, or if it's agriculture which continues to fuel my family, or medical alley, or the small business that I visited. Ladies and gentlemen, we can be safe, we can educate our children, and we can be prosperous with the right candidate. I am my candidate, I'm Michelle Benson, and I want your support.
All right. So, good start here. So Republicans do tend to agree on most things. So what we have here is 5 questions that will help you all differentiate between the 6 candidates you have up here in some way. We probably agree on 75–80% of the points that are out there, but looking at the platform, the big ticket items are faith, family, freedom, work ethic, self-reliance, privacy, right to self-defense, reducing taxes, limiting government, the integrity of our elections, education, and the rule of law are just a few of the things that are front and center in the GOP platform. So, of all the things Republicans stand for, which one thing do you most closely identify with, and with which do you least closely identify? I will start with Mayor Murphy.
That's a great question. It's a very tough question to answer. They're all intrinsically important because they matter. Those are the reasons why I'm running for this position, because we don't have all of our core principles defended at all times. We don't have a functioning society. One of the most important things that we need to get under control right now is the lawlessness that is taking place. In order to have a civilized society, we have to have law and order. We have to have the rule of law. We have to get the violent criminals off the street. Then we can start focusing on the other important things like election integrity, and the COVID issues, critical race theory, and education. It's hard for me to answer that question, Mitch. And to be honest with you, I don't have one that I believe I'm not least favorable to, because all of them are important to us, and I want to fight for every single issue.
Up next, we'll go to Mike Marty.
It's impossible to choose one of those that matters more than the other, because they're all interconnected. So rather than identifying with one issue in particular, what group do I identify with most closely? That's you, the voters, because that's who I am. I'm just a small town, small business person, just like all of you. I'm not a politician. I don't plan on being a politician for very long. That's not my goal here. My goal is to go to St. Paul, make a change, and then go back to work.
And we'll move on to Dr. Jensen.
Freedom. Freedom is the thing that weaves its way into all the issues that Mitch referenced earlier. That's the thing I most avidly and powerfully align myself with and would say is the most prominent issue for me. Everything we look at, whether we're talking about lawlessness, students, secure election, it has to be about freedom. So that's where I align. That's why we have protests and demonstrations around the world for freedom. When I don't align, the one that I least align is the political shenanigans, the gotcha moments, the getting stuck in the mud on what does a conservative platform look like. We have got to welcome in the minorities, the millennials, the Gen Zs. They have to give shape to our party as well. They want us to talk about how we deal with the environment, how do we deal with conservation, how do we deal with consumer protection, how do we encourage corporate responsibility. So, if you will, the purity tests, the litmus tests, that's what I least align with. We need to choose in a dynamic way what is a conservative.
Senator Gazelka.
My faith drives me to stand up and fight for you, but I need to draw distinctions, and I don't think these are shenanigans. I think you need to know the differences between some of the candidates up here. And so I am a strong protector of the Second Amendment. Scott Jensen authored 2 bills against the Second Amendment. It took all of session to stop him from doing that. I'm against government-run health care. Scott Jensen voted for government-run health care, and now he says he's for it. I'm against recreational marijuana. Scott Jensen co-authored recreational marijuana. Now he says he's against recreational marijuana. I don't. Scott Jensen supports ranked choice voting. I don't. And lastly, Scott Jensen campaigned for Joe Jorgensen for president against President Trump. A few days before the election, he was at her campaign rally at the podium speaking, I would never do that. And I think it's appropriate that you guys see the differences between us, done in a respectful manner, but you have to see the differences.
I hope you feel better, Paul.
Senator Benson.
I choose freedom. Because from freedom, the government that respects personal freedom, you then choose your relationship with God. You then choose the values by which you raise your children. You are inherently allowed to defend yourself if you are free. All of the things on that list require the umbrella of freedom. Our country, unique in all of history, because it started with freedom. I choose freedom.
And finally, Dr. Mitch.
What are some of the most scary words in the English language? I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help. Limited government is the message that resonates with me the most. I'm not going to ask the government for permission to carry a firearm. I'm not going to ask the government for permission to speak my mind. I'm not going to ask the government to solve any of my problems. There are no guarantees in America other than freedom, the liberty, the Constitution. And that's what brought my parents here 50 years ago in search of a better life. What resonates with me the least, this concept that we should somehow run from conservative values, that we should be agreeable with the radical left that wants to destroy our state, and that we should compromise. I will not compromise on my Second Amendment rights. I will not compromise on free speech. I will not compromise on defending unborn Minnesotans. The time for compromise is over. The time to send a strong conservative to St. Paul who will stand up for conservative values and not run from them is here. Thank you.
I'm going to suspend the rule against applause for one brief passage here. First of all, to applaud the person who brought coffee. Feel free to top up if you need. Courtesy of Representative Hammer, so yay. And I've also been told that we should extend a warm Elk River welcome to the other person who normally would have a hard time finding Elk River on a map, our DFL tracker. Welcome. All right, rule against applause back in full effect. Okay. There's a lot of issues facing Minnesotans right now that will affect not only us, but our kids, our grandkids, future generations, the time immemorial it took. What issue do you consider the most important issue right now in the immediate future and the long term? I will start with Mike Marty this time.
Executive power. That is the biggest issue facing Minnesota right now. And that's not just emergency powers. I'm talking about executive power. I'm talking about widely, loosely written laws that get passed by a legislature and then signed by a governor and then abused by a governor. That's what's brought us electric car mandates. That's what's brought us lockdown schools, closed churches, and all of that other nonsense that doesn't have any place in this state. As governor, I will eliminate as much executive power as possible and put it back where it belongs in the legislature.
Senator Jensen.
Critical issue right now is winning. It's got to be winning. I pledged to you as governor that in the first 100 days we would make a pact with Minnesota. We will rewrite the emergency powers so never again do we labor under an emperor. We will pass a stand your ground bill and we will pass constitutional carry. We will provide for student choice and we will have photo ID. That would be my pact. I do think that we're going to see this kind of political stuff go on. But I will never stop being polite and courteous when I'm asked to speak for the political candidate who comes a mile from my house when I'm senator and who is in the same party as Rand Paul. The Libertarian Party has nothing to be embarrassed about. They have in many ways led the charge to have a love affair with the Constitution. And if we don't recognize how powerfully important it is that we once again intersect with the Constitution like never before, we've been sleeping. Thank you.
Senator Zucker.
The Libertarian Party got 35,000 votes. If Trump had been close, what would have that done? But the two biggest issues, without a doubt, for me, are parents need to be much more involved in the education process. They have to have choice. The curriculum must be transparent to them. Their voice must be heard. And kids in failing schools must have choices. And we got to stop this crazy history that's basically not appreciating the greatness of America and just pointing out our flaws. second one, these are both now and moving forward, is public safety. The fact that they are trying to defund the police and don't appreciate them, and we have less and less police officers and more crime, the other side cannot figure out the correlation. But we have to stand up, help our police, push the prosecutors and the judges to actually do their job and take our streets back. Then people can feel safe and kids can play out in the backyards without being shot and killed. They don't have to be in the backseat of their car, their parents' car, or in a McDonald's and being shot and killed. We got to stop that.
Senator Benson.
Immediate public safety. Because if you are not safe in your person and your property, you are not free. So let's get our cities safe. Midterm. Reform education. We have an education system that is being structured to divide our children against each other and undermine the greatness of our country. Long-term, parental control and choice is how we reform education in Minnesota. And then finally, the long-term, big picture view that I have had since the day I decided to run for office is the federal government should not be telling the state of Minnesota and its citizens what to do, whether it is a takeover through Obamacare, which Jim Walz helped shepherd through, by the way, and Joe Biden thought was a big, well, you know the word he said, deal, or vaccine mandates put in by administrative bureaucrats taking away the voice of Minnesotans, and our governor sits on his hands and lets it happen. Pulling mining leases when companies have gone through every single step they needed to provide jobs for Minnesota, and mining is essential to our national defense. Biden and Walz sat aside while the administration took away jobs and compromised our national defense with mining. So those are my three. Happy to talk to you about any of them after.
Dr. Shaw.
The schools are the battleground for the future of America, and for too long we have ceded that ground to the radical left and their ideological teachers' unions. We have to take that ground back. How do we do that? One, we put the dollars behind the student. I had the opportunity to pull my kids out, along with my wife, from public schools that were failing them, that were indoctrinating them to hate, that were teaching them falsehoods about American history. But that tens of thousands of Minnesota families don't have the ability to pay twice. We need to ensure that every family can choose whether they want to homeschool, private, or public school their child, and have the educational resources to do so financially. Because the schools are the battleground of the future, we can no longer run from this fight.
And finally, Mayor Murphy.
We have to have law and order. Like I mentioned before, we have to have a civilized society. In order to do that with law and order, we have to have safe and secure streets. We have to have well-funded police. We have to have enough police, and we have to lock these criminals up. Then we got to go after the education unions. We have to go after the teachers unions. We have to go after the bad teachers. We have to let our parents know that your children are safe in our schools. They're actually learning a real education such as math, history, civics, the Constitution, American exceptionalism, so they are set up for a prosperous future. And then we have to let the people of Minnesota know that we're never, ever, ever going to have a governor like Tim Walz again. We're going to have to pass the Never Again bill. We're going to have to reform emergency powers. Promise Minnesotans that we're going to get rid of these vaccine mandates and any potential mandates down the future. Because I want government out of our lives as much as you do, and I want to make Minnesota government as small and as responsible to the people of the state as possible.
Thank you very much. By the way, I urge the candidates to mind the stop signal there. I think if I could clear my throat any harder, I will make it through the next forum I have to do today, so be mindful. Anyway, next question concerns getting elected, the important part. Given the left-leaning bias of most media in this state, with one key exception, which puts all of you at kind of a disadvantage statewide if you're a conservative, how do you specifically see yourself getting a statewide presence, and what specific media methods do you want to add to your message to make sure that you get a statewide presence? We'll start with Dr. Jensen.
Thank you. I think President Trump showed us the roadmap. The media was hardly in his camp, and he went out and used social media, had rallies, and created a movement. And he demonstrated that he could accomplish something that hadn't been done before. I think we have to do the same thing in Minnesota. We're kidding ourselves if we think that we can bring the media to our side. We're going to have to do the best we can. But we've got to use social media, whether we're using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it doesn't matter. Our campaign has, if you will, created a movement. And it's because of you folks. You're the ones who poured gas on our fire, and our fire is burning hot. We have 500,000 people following us every day. We have more social media engagement than Ron DeSantis. We have 75,000 people that get our emails every week. We have 10,000 unique voters. We've set records on fundraising. You have demonstrated. Jensen, you're a conservative. We're with you. We're going to create a movement, and we're going to win.
Senator Zupka.
Thank you. As I think about this, I've been the leader for the last 5 years, so I have a lot of statewide recognition. The outstate Minnesota cities and administrators did a poll in August. Who would be the Republican candidate? I got 37%, Jensen got 22%, Benson got 1%, the other three here didn't get the rest of the numbers. But how do you win? We have to broaden our areas to win. So I recruited 2 range Democrat senators to join us. That's the first time ever that 2 came over. One of them is publicly supporting me on the Iron Range, and another Democrat leader as well. The police are getting behind me. I've already endorsed by the Federal Highway Patrol. I got the Legislator of the Year from the Chiefs of Police and the Minnesota Peace and Police Officers. That's a big group. I've been working with blue collar union members. That's how we won OK for the first time. That's how we won Austin for the first time. And we wouldn't have the majority without them. Some of those people that were on Walz's campaign are literally giving money into my campaign now. And I'm reaching into Minneapolis and St. Paul, developing relationships with the minority communities, which I've done for the last 5 years.
Senator Benson.
The question was about media. So we're going to get the traditional media. Radio. I've stood in enough press conferences. I had to answer questions on Mitch that Mark Dayton never had to answer. So traditional media, we've got that. And how do you get to millennials and Gen Z? Look at what they care about. They don't care about labels. They care that you're authentic. They care that you seek to understand their lives and want to listen to them. And so whatever screen they're on, you need to be there. If they're on Hulu or if they're on ESPN, you need to have a message that matches them but in an authentic way. Because they're not going to buy labels and they're not going to buy fighting. They want to know you care about their life. So let's look at the folks in greater Minnesota where I grew up. Let's get the families in the suburbs who had the same experience as I did when our grocery stores had to be covered with plywood because we're riots in Minneapolis. Let's go into the core cities and talk to the moms, the ones I met after the riots. But let's also meet the millennials and Gen Z where they're at.
Dr. Shah.
The legacy media has become the enemy of the people. And we will not win them over until the market destroys them. And that process is happening with podcasts, with Alpha News, with websites that we can all go to and trust to give us actual news, not what the Democratic Party wants us to hear. But we, the people, are the way that we win this. What's the last time you had a statewide candidate that wasn't just, well, not the other guy? What's the last time you had someone like Donald Trump who got people really, truly excited? The last time you had someone get your cell phones out and text every person you knew to say you have to go and show up and vote for this person. He's not a career politician. He's going to stand for conservative values. He's going to take back this state. You are the answer to the problem of the legacy media. And if we get the right candidate and we get excited and we turn out our base, we will win.
Mayor Murphy.
It's no big secret, the media is public enemy #1 to our country. Look at what they've done to us over the last year. They continue to do. They continue to jam this no-nonsense junk down our throats and indoctrinating us and our people. And there's, I don't call the mass people that you see at the gas stations anymore crazies. They're victims. And they're creating victims all over our society, and I back up with it. Same thing with social media. That's why my campaign's not hundreds of thousands of dollars into Facebook like Scott Jensen's campaign is doing. That's why he has 500,000 views every day. You don't get that stuff organically unless you're paying for it. And I'm not going to give Zuckerberg and all those other people my money. My campaign money that I'm going to use for donors like you to fight against Tim Walz and the radical left. We're creating a grassroots movement. That's what matters. That's how you win elections, through the grassroots. Bringing new people into the fold that have never, ever, ever been in before. I'm a no-nonsense candidate. I say what needs to be said. said, and I will always fight for Minnesotans, because that's what we need is a fight. And as far as bringing in the youth, I'm the youngest candidate sitting at this table, and I know what they need.
And finally, Mike Martin.
When was the last time anybody really paid attention to the legacy media in this room? It doesn't happen very much. They're antiques. It's time that we move on past them, and it's true. We need to go to social media. That's where the real action is at. But I agree with Mayor Murphy. We don't give them a dime. What have they done for us? They've divided us. They've turned us against each other. And it's a waste time. The way to get through to Minnesotans is to be genuine, to be a real person, not a politician. Go to them with a true conservative message, something that resonates in the inner city, because it truly does. Freedom sells every time that it's put out there. The people want that. That is what they're looking for.
Okay, we move on to the fourth question here. These both relate to how you plan to lead if you're elected. So, given that Governor Walz jumped on emergency power like it was the last bag of Cheetos at a Grateful Dead concert, we'd like to know, how do you plan to ensure the protection of individual rights for oneself and your family here in Minnesota? Will you unequivocally vow that your administration will rewrite the emergency powers statute so that emergency powers will automatically expire unless the House, the Senate, and the governor agree to extend them? And what other measures will you see being needed? We'll start with Senator Gizelka.
Absolutely. No person should have the kind of powers that Tim Walz took as governor. He used them as a stick to beat people into submission. No one should ever be able to do that. We passed, I believe it was Senate File 4 that said that the maximum we get is 30 days. I would have been happy as governor to have nothing or 7 days or a small number. We've got to take those back. That is why I said we need to give him an early retirement. He abused the powers. He closed down schools and churches and businesses. He fined businesses $10,000 when they were supposed to be fined $1,000. And he botched the riots and failed to act. And as a result of all those powers that one person took, he ruined it. I would never do that. And I would never do a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. In the Senate, we didn't have a mask mandate because that was the one place Democrats didn't have control.
Senator Benson.
Thank you. 30 days is enough. I was on the House floor when they took the vote that was finally going to lift emergency powers, and you could feel the freedom. It was amazing. I will never forget what that felt like. We also need to put limits on rulemaking. The legislature needs to pass limits on executive rulemaking. I'll sign it. I'm happy to limit the powers of the executive beyond emergency powers in rulemaking. And when federal money comes in, the legislature needs to be able to stop it so that the bureaucracy can't build permanent programs based on strings tied to money from Washington. So it's not just emergency powers. It's all of it.
Dr. Shaw.
I signed the Never Again pledge, but the career politicians refuse to sign that. We cannot let one man or one woman take control of the state ever again. I can think of a few things more important than that. And not only do we have to give that power back to the legislature, but it has to be very hard for the legislature to take away our rights on their own. We need a 2/3 majority. It has to be renewed very frequently, and there has to be a Bill of Rights built into it, so there are inalienable rights, such as the right to assemble, redress, have a Second Amendment right, all baked in that can never be taken away, not by the legislature and not by an executive. There is only one bill that does that, Representative Morrison's Never Again bill. That's why I signed that pledge. I don't sign pledges every day. That's the only one I've signed because it's that important. Ask your career politicians why they won't.
Mayor Murphy.
As a mayor, I've already proven that I can lead. That's why I made my city a Second Amendment sanctuary city. The only one in Anoka County, the only one in the metro area of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So we're going to protect your Second Amendment rights. And as governor, we're going to have a Second Amendment sanctuary state, constitutional carry state, stand your ground state. We're going to ban red flag laws. In 2 weeks, I'm going to be passing a health freedom sanctuary resolution in the city of Lexington banning all vaccine mandates, banning all employer mandates, mask mandates, and everything in my community. I'm going to make sure that gets done in Minnesota as well. And as far as tyrannical emergency make sure that as governor, the legislative body gets the power back, the people get the power back, and the governor is held accountable. Because we cannot have tyrants being our leaders. We cannot have kings and queens leading over us. That's not what this country is founded on.
Mike Marty.
When you're guided by principle, the answers become very short and focused. I absolutely would require that we rewrite our emergency powers. There is no reason that one person can rule over us. Taking away our churches, our businesses, it's absolutely ridiculous. That's not America. That's not who we are. It belongs in the legislature. They must, both sides must affirm it, not this crazy idea that somehow one has to vote, or that they both have to vote against it to get rid of it. That's just insanity. Also, vaccine mandates. My wife's job is at risk because of that. She's an RN at a large clinic in Rochester. You might guess which one. She's tried to do the religious exemption, and unfortunately she's been denied twice for that. So January 3rd, she will probably lose her job. We need a governor who will stand up to that.
And finally, Senator Jensen.
Emergency powers must be rewritten. I remember the last day of the regular session in 2020, we had a battle royale in the Republican Senate caucus, and I spoke passionately and strongly that we needed to vote on it that day. We needed to suspend the rules and send a message to Minnesota. For whatever reason, the Senate Majority Leader opposed that, and we did not do that. Every month that we were getting a request from the governor to extend emergency powers, I said we've got to vote to take them away. I don't know why we didn't in November, and I don't know why we didn't in May. But it should not be a difficult thing for the governor to go to the legislature and say, here, let me give you some of my powers so that we can rebalance our legislature. That's what we have to do. We just have to go and rebalance it. And every time there's a request for a continuation of the emergency powers, we've got to make it more and more difficult. 60%, 67%, 75%. That's what we need to do.
All right, down to the final question. Two quick notes for starters. Thank you. All my father have not next up Senators Benson and Jensen yet. That's a first. These things.
Mitch, I'm Berg.
That's right. Doesn't help much. And finally, yes, Representative Winkler is waiting out front in a small cramped Corolla for the applaud. You know who you are. Final question. We've seen governors of other states standing up to the wrath of executive orders that the Brandon Biden administration has been kicking out here lately. One of the hot button issues is increased scrutiny for education, where not only is the Fed trying to aggressively push progressive ideology, you might even say theology, but states and local schools are getting swamped with this in a stealthy manner through a variety of methods, like additional funding at the state level, pushing various theories that we all have arguments with. Intolerance of debate, more importantly, reinforcement of unproven science, lower standards, etc. So, the question is how will you address parents' concerns over these policies, and what changes will you make to the current status of both K-12 education and other education? How about universities? Do you have a plan for outreach to younger voters? Technically, two different questions. Tackle them the best you can. Senator Benson.
Thank you. Education is obviously critical to the future of the state of Minnesota. We need an education system that focuses on the ABCs, getting our kids to read, helping them learn math, helping them understand this country and our history, warts and all. We are the only country in the world that has in our founding documents towards a more perfect union. We know we have flaws, so let's teach them, but not make them the things that we leave our children with. So parental choice helps accomplish that, because then your children are raised in the values that matter to your family. Our minority students are in the bottom 5 of reading scores. We are in the top 5 of taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a money problem in education. We have a system problem and a standards problem. Parental choice changes all of it.
Dr. Shaw.
The left likes to gaslight that your concerns about CRT are not real. Oh, they're real. They're baking the hate, they're baking the racism, they're baking the woke into the cake. into the curriculum. And that means that even if you take over your local school board, you're going to have to force feed that hate into your kids. Taking over your school boards is the first step, but we need to give your school boards the curricular autonomy they deserve so that they can stand up to unelected bureaucrats in St. Paul who want to force the hate into our communities so that you can choose here the best curriculum that fits the educational needs of your learners. That legislation has to happen. And yet the career politicians continue to fund public education with increasing dollars every year. Why? Why are we funding people who want to teach our kids to hate? Why are we funding people that are not providing an education for citizens throughout this state? Ask them that question.
Mayor Berg.
Education is important. It shapes the future generations of our country. We know the radical left is indoctrinating our children. Critical race theory is the thing right now. Will be some indoctrination scheme the next time critical race theory runs out. We have to go after the corrupt teachers unions. We know they're the super PAC for the radical left. Tim Walz is just their mouthpiece. We also have to go after the teachers who are complicit with it. That's why I propose ending the tenure in teachers so we can hold bad teachers accountable. Just like the left wants to hold bad police officers accountable. They want to fire cops for every little mistake. I say we should have the right to eliminate bad teachers and get them out of our schools. Our students need to be learning what it is to be an American. They need to learn to decide for themselves. No pronouns, what bathroom you use, what gender you are, none of that. And we need to get that crap out of our public universities as well. All taxpayer-funded educational institutions need to be held accountable. And I want to do that as your governor, and I will be relentless in fighting for that issue.
Mike Martin.
As a father of four, I know what it's like to feel trapped in a public school system. We have kids all the way from elementary school up to the first year in college. Education is absolutely critical. Teaching them civics. In fact, if you went back 30 years and asked some of my 8th grade government teachers, does Mike sound the same today as he did back then, they would say yes, because he's guided by principle. The funding needs to follow the students. The money that goes from St. Paul to your local schools needs to make a stop. It needs to stop in your mailbox. When it stops there, you should have the choice to spend those dollars however you see fit. Whether that's homeschooling, private schooling, or possibly a good public school. We're fortunate to be blessed where we live in a school district that is a good public school. There are some of them out there, but there are many that are failing, most of them in the inner city. Those parents would love to have a choice to take their children to a private school.
Senator Johnson.
Critical race theory is wrong. It's inspired by hate. It's driven by division. It just needs to go away. But what we really need to do in education is we need to blow open what we're doing. We need to give kids more choices. We have sort of insisted that you learn this way or hit the highway. We need to provide hands-on opportunities. There are so many things we can do. The money has to follow the kids. Too often, the teachers are blamed. The teachers are not really represented by their unions. And if you talk to the teachers, they'll tell you that. We need to make certain that parents and teachers and kids get to work together so kids can dream dreams and go pursue those dreams. School boards have to be held accountable to parents. And if we need to create new ways for parents to be able to recall school boards, then that's what we have to do. But we have to increase accountability to parents.
And finally, Senator Zelka.
I talked about this a bit, but frankly, our education system has to work. Public schools where about 85% of the kids go to school. Some go to Christian schools like our kids did at homeschool. But as governor, I will not allow the Department of Education to jam critical race theory down into the school systems. I will not allow it. They've gone through now the third rendition of what they want to introduce for our history standards, and that is exactly what they want to do. We delayed it till after this next election cycle, so we must win governor to stop that. But then it's helping the kids be successful. Everyone out there talking about choice. That is the way that you make all of them successful. Competition forces the public school to get better. And we got to talk about trades more. There's a lot of kids that should be going into the trades. That is a great direction for many kids. It's not just going to a four-year college. what is the best path for our kids. We can do this, but we have to be able to stand up. This is one of the things we must fight for like never before.
All right. We're now going to have 2-minute closing statements from each of the candidates. Before we do that, 2 notes. First of all, we will lift the no applause rules. Feel free after their statements. Also, quick round of applause for someone who has the only job harder than trying to keep Sandy Pappas from kicking dogs. That would be Matt Stevens, our sound mixer. Normally, by this point, there would have been a wave of feedback in this room this live that would have made you all deaf. So not an easy job. So 2-minute closing statements. We'll start with Dr. Neil Shaw.
Thank you for spending the morning with us today. Your attendance clearly shows that you understand the gravity of this election and what's at stake for our state and for our nation. We are running out of time. If we want to keep America as a free and prosperous country where liberty is the focus, we need to start sending folks to St. Paul who are going to stand up to those who want to take those freedoms away. We cannot play nice with the radical left. They want to destroy us, destroy our way of life, and destroy the last free country in the world. And we can't win a statewide race by running the same kind of crude politicians in St. Paul and then being shocked when we get the same result the 26th time in a row. It's time for something different. It's time for someone who's going to stand on that stage next to Tim Walz and unleash ferocious firepower and make him cry. I look forward to making Tim Walz cry. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh my gosh! In closure, I just want to say to you that I have a day job. And like some of the folks up here, I want to serve. I want to get Tim Walz to retire and go back to whatever it is he wants to do at home alone. And I want to put this state on a footing to be a red state going forward. We know it can happen, but it cannot happen if we continue to send the same kind of career politicians to St. Paul. So I would urge you to get out there, vote, become election judges, get involved, find the candidates you can get excited about for once, and support them. We need dollars and delegates. My name is Dr. Neil Shaw, and I'm running to be the next governor of the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
I apologize.
It's okay, I'll go home and buy it. I'll make rolls, right?
Mayor Mike Murphy.
Thanks for being here today, this morning. Look, one of the 6 of us is going to be on that ballot in November against parental. So you can choose the ones that have already been compromised over the years of being in elected office, or you can choose a principled conservative like myself who has been proven to keep to his word, like me. As a mayor, I've done a lot of great things, such as Second Amendment sanctuary, tyrannical powers ban, health freedom, which is coming up in a few weeks, and we're going to get that done at the state level. And I promise to you that I will never stop fighting. I never thought I'd be sitting at this stage, never a passion of mine. Thought it would just be in law enforcement. That didn't work out. So I went into small business, I couldn't be doing that. Then I got elected to city council, and I'm here because I've had enough, just like you. I've had enough, and I don't want to leave this state for a red state. Flipping our blue states to red is how we save our country in 2022. That's important. That's how we fight back against the branding administration in D.C. And people like Ilhan Omar, and AMC Squad, and the rest of them who want to fundamentally change our country. I cannot be bought, I cannot be sold, I cannot be controlled. I'm not motivated by any of that stuff. I'm not motivated by the money, the perks, the title. None of it means anything to me. Saving this country, saving the American experiment, saving the Constitution is what matters to me the most. And having a future for my daughter, my daughter's children, and everyone else along the line in this state. Because that's important. Saving this country is what matters the most, because I will not allow Minnesota to become the next China, the next Russia, the next Venezuela in our country as well. My name is Mike Murphy. I'm running for governor, obviously. You know that. To beat Tyrant Tim Walz, the radical left, to kick all these clowns out of this state, out of this country, come visit me at my table back there. Come see Dustin and I. We need dollars and delegates, as Neil said as well. Support is great. Come chat with me, ask questions. Thank you for being here. God bless all of you.
Up next, Mike Marty.
Thank you for coming out here today. It's amazing to see this many people out on a nice Saturday morning in December. I know what kind of a sacrifice that is because we have very few of them. We can't elect another moderate. We can't put another moderate on the ballot hoping that somehow we will get a different result. Because even if we do, what will happen is the same thing that's been happening for decades, and that is the slow drift to the left. There's really only about 3 or 4 degrees of separation between all of us up here. But what happens over time is that 3 degrees of separation ends up being a wide gap, which is where we're at in this nation. It means that we have to have a very large course correction in order to get back to where we belong. That's what we need. We need someone who's willing to do that. We need somebody who can stand on principles and work to change our state for our children. My name is Mike Marty, and I'm running to be your next governor.
Senator Scott Jensen.
Who here hasn't wondered if we're living in a Twilight Zone episode and if someone's going to just say, we were just kidding, it's all not true. But here we are, for such a time as this. I think that's why you're here. When I raised my hand and said to the Department of Health and the CDC, hey, when you ask me to do death certificates differently than I've done in the last 25 years, you don't know what you're doing. I had no idea that 2 months later I would have my license investigated and that would be the first of 5 times. This has to be about us doing something different. We need to have conservatives win. Otherwise, it's all just noise. We can do it. I think that's why you're here. You feel it. There's an energy. We can build a bigger tent. We can go to the minorities, and we can recognize that faith, family, freedom, less government, and protecting the unborn are their priorities just as they are ours. We can go to the millennials and Gen Zs and invite them to the table and tell them we need their help, not talk down to them. And we need to do a better job of the Republican Party, of being a party that's bigger than just old white males. We need to really be there for women. We need to be there for the millennials and the Gen Zs. We need to have that kind of dynamic nature that allows the younger people to say, what about the conservation and the environment and consumer protection and corporate responsibility? How do we deal with that? In our campaign, we're not taking any money from Big Pharma or Big Tech, but are they there? To be sure. This time around, this is all on you. This isn't my challenge, these people's challenge. It's our challenge. And this time around, I'm asking you, could I please be your voice? I've spent a lifetime being the voice of my patients, and this time I'm seeking your support to be the voice of Minnesota. Thank you for coming.
Senator Paul Gazal.
Thank you for being here, first of all. I didn't say, but I've been married for 39 years, and we have 5 kids and now 5 grandkids. And I've never seen where we are at today in our society. I've never seen it. I've never been more concerned than right now. And for those that are here that are new to this fight, welcome to the fight. So I've been the Senate leader for 5 years. I've been in the Senate 11 years. I'm done next year, no matter what. I have an insurance agency. I'm either governor, I've given up my insurance agency, or I'm an insurance agent in Brainerd, living the dream. But this is a fight that we must engage in. And I'll make the case that I know you're looking for a conservative. That's why I talk about our records up here. If you're not looking for a fighter, then I'm not your guy. You got to fight at this level, and then you have to fight against Tim Walz and remove him from office. But I've been in the fight. I had to go head to head against 2 Democrat governors at the highest level of confrontation. We never raised taxes. We always defended the Second Amendment. We defended life. We defended the small business owner. We defended the ag community. And lately, we've had to stop them from defunding the police. We stood our ground on a 1-vote majority and everything else Democrat. So if you're looking for somebody that knows how to govern, and you should, it's a $50 billion budget. You got to know what you're doing. It's very, very complex. Then I'm your guy. If you're looking for somebody that knows how to win, I won back-to-back majorities as the Senate Majority Leader, winning the Senate when nobody else won. Our Senate Majority won. I raised 5 times more money from all sources than the prior leadership team. You got to raise money, you got to win. And I've expanded our alliances to the blue blue-collar unions, the police, the Iron Range, minority communities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We know how to win, but I'm asking for your support. I'm Paul Gazelka. God willing, I'll be the next governor of the great state of Minnesota. Thank you.
And finally, Senator Michelle Benson.
I'm Michelle Benson. You want a principled leader? I don't need to argue. Just look at my voting record. Really, just look at my voting record. You want somebody who's prepared to do the job? Look at the work that I've actually done. The fight that I've actually been in. It's a $50 billion general fund budget, but I know there are a lot more funds in the general fund because I've had to deal with all of them. And you want somebody who's electable? Let's get somebody who's heard the voices of Minnesotans across this state, not just for campaigns, but because of the way I live. So if you want principled, prepared, and electable, I'm your candidate. But we started with why would anyone do this? I tell you, every time I talk, I'm running to make Tim Walz a one-term governor. But that's just a consequence of what I want to do. A more free and more prosperous Minnesota is my mission every single day. We need our people to be safe. We need our children to be educated, to believe this is a great country, and to live to their God-given potential. And we need this state to renew our preeminence as a leader in medtech, in ag, in mining, in forestry, in building the greatest people who have ever walked in this country. It is because of this country Minnesota can be great, and it's because of the people that Minnesota can be great. So ladies and gentlemen, I will say it again. I'm running to make Tim Walz a one-term governor so that I can work on a more free and more prosperous Minnesota. I have never been part of a country club. I don't breakfast at the Minneapolis Club. I'm going to need your help with money, and I'm going to need your help with delegates. MichelleForMN.com. Thank you.
Representative Navarro is called back and close out really quickly before you get to the main event. All of you, and you talk with the candidates. So two things. First of all, Ronald Reagan once said, someone who is 70% your friend is not 30% your enemy. And I urge you to keep that in mind as you go forward to caucuses and convention time. Remembering that the only thing that's separating Minnesota from becoming another Michigan, a better smelling New Jersey, a colder California, is one of these people winning this ball. Keep that in mind.